Hello, everyone. We are so excited to be with you this afternoon. We are going to be talking about divorce with special needs children, and we are very, very excited. I have with me the beautiful and amazing Marianne Hughes. She is with Special Family Transitions, and she is the mother of two special needs children. She is a certified special needs divorce coach. She is a certified divorce specialist. She is a National Association of Divorce Professionals member, as well as a National Association of Divorce Professionals with Special Needs, as well as being the co-director of that. She has been assisting divorcing clients with special needs children for over 3 years right now. And I'm super, super excited to have her as part of this podcast. This is her website, and we'll get back to this. I am Melissa Wittenborn. I am a professional speaker and author of Going Green with Your Self-Esteem. I am a Toastmasters competent communicator, a certified divorce specialist, a member of the National Association of Divorce Professionals, as well as having mastering QuickBooks certification, along with 15 plus years of experience assisting CEOs, COOs, CFOs, and individuals with financial responsibility and budgeting. And what we thought would be wonderful to discuss today is why you would want to reach out to Marianne or myself before going through an acrimonious divorce with special needs children. It does not need to be acrimonious, but we have some interesting statistics that we researched about this very specific need for divorcing couples. As most of you know, throughout the country, once a child hits the age of 18, they are emancipated from typical divorces. There can always be special things written into a marital settlement agreement, but typically once a child reaches 18, then the partners don't need to support each other if there are needs post 18 years of age. Interestingly, we also learned that up to 87% of couples with special needs children wind up in a divorce, which is a very sad statistic, but we are here to give you some nuggets as to why you want to give some careful consideration to your financial accountability, as well as reaching out to someone like Marianne on how to provide for special needs children, because that's an entirely different process. So I am going to let Marianne tell you a little bit about herself and her own personal story, if you don't mind sharing, Marianne, and take it away.
Sure. Thank you, Melissa. It's a pleasure to be on your show. Appreciate you inviting me and being able to share with your audience about all the things that you need to think about and do as a parent of a special needs child going through divorce. I went through it myself several years ago and never saw it coming. And so after 21 years of marriage, I was unexpectedly faced with divorce. So it wasn't anything on my radar, and I didn't know what to do or who to turn to. And so I spent a lot of time, money, and effort trying to find people to help me, attorneys, special needs, financial consultants and analysts and people who understood what I was going through and could help me plan for the future. I can tell you it was really hard to find. Eventually, I did piece together a team and found people to help me, but it was a long, hard road getting there. The whole process was very time consuming, resource intensive in terms of time, money, and energy. And so as you mentioned, the statistics are very high of people who have to go through this all the time. So I didn't want all my knowledge and efforts to go to waste. I wanted to help other people through the process so they wouldn't have to put it in the same resource and energy that I did. And so I formed Special Family Transitions and went through all kinds of coaching certifications. And so now really honored and proud to be one of the very first certified special needs divorce coaches out there. It's a new program that's been put together. I help inspire that, the need for it, and I even help develop the curriculum and the content, and decided to even be one of the instructors now doing that program. So there is hope. There's going to be more and more people able to help, but right now it's really kind of hard to find those those resources to help you. So it's great that people like you and different things that we'll talk about are there to help support people on their journey to try to figure out what they need to do and how to advocate for their kids in the process.
So interestingly, Marianne and I met on an ADP call, I believe it was. And I used to teach special education people. I have a sister who still teaches autistic children. She owns a private tutoring company, and I do a little bit of private tutoring myself. So I know that special needs children will have different needs after the age of 18. Can you tell me how you navigated that through your divorcing experience, please?
Sure, that's a great question because my kids were becoming adults during my divorce, so I had to uh, think long term. And so that's my advice for anybody going through this process. I don't just think about, even if your kids are young, like you mentioned, law states emancipate at 18. Well, know that for someone with a disability, then that, depending on your state, if it's different every state, but where I am in Texas, for instance, you can have indefinite, meaning lifelong child support. A lot of people don't know that. In some states, it's a higher age. So don't think just because your child is turning 18 that one child support is going to end, because that may or may not be the case. And even if it is, um, you know, the normal age in your state, you can still make agreements for things to happen differently. So I don't want people to get discouraged about that. You can also, work with an attorney in your state to figure out, okay, in terms of maybe you can get spousal support when in Texas that's hard to get, for instance. But there's exceptions made for families that have a child with a disability, whether it's spousal support, whether it's a greater percentage of the marital property division and different things that you can look at. So you want to consider what the child's needs are. So that's the biggest advice I would give is, as we've talked about, there's young and there's older, but we want to look at the long term. Even if, we're not sure what those things are, we want to work with professionals who can help us try to make estimates or try to think about things that will happen in the future, whether it's ongoing therapies, whether it's caregiving costs to offload maybe the primary caregiver who now has to either go back to work or has to balance their time being this only parent at home. Before it was a team effort. And so now we want to be able to provide support for that family to avoid caregiver burnout and to be able to provide support for that child in the best way possible. And so
That's amazing. It sounds like you found a great way to balance being the sole caregiver instead of a joint caregiver, as well as providing yourself some space so that you can be who you need to be as an adult caretaker, because caretakers get a lot of time and energy sucked out of them. So that's a very difficult situation for you. Marianne, how did you go about finding a divorce attorney that wasn't doing I call it the carte blanche statement, because I've dealt with clients, I'm sure you have all across the country, where it's like it's a 50-50 split, the end. And that's not necessarily true. Sometimes there are extenuating circumstances, such as special needs children and caregiving. How did you navigate finding a divorce attorney that would assist you?
that's a great question because, yeah, a lot of them, there's a lot of great attorneys out there, but unless they have specific special needs experience and training, they're not going to know some of the intricacies of things you need to do, not just to help advocate now, but also there's certain things that wording that needs to be in the decree and agreement so that you're protecting that child's benefits in the short and long term. So, for instance, I'm not going to get too much detail now, but a child is only allowed to have a certain number, certain amount, a cap on their assets that they can have in their name, or else they're going to lose eligibility for government benefits. And so we want to make sure that we're working with somebody who understands those different criteria and what we need to include. And sometimes it's working with a special needs estate planning attorney. So you've got to find a team. It's not just the attorney, but you've got to find someone who understands the legal, the family law aspects, as well as the planning, future planning aspects, and working with a financial professional who can help you also develop that life care plan or look into the future when it's maybe hard to do on your own. So all those things definitely come into play. But in terms of how to find one, I think having a network of special needs families, sometimes that's a good source of referral. Sometimes the working with organizations that specialize in that. For instance, NADP has that special needs chapter. We do have several attorneys that do focus in that area. So that's one way, even as members of the NADP, we can find people and connect people with those resources as well. And so that's something I'm working on with some other members of my team to help develop those resource lists to be able to share, because they are hard to find, and you got to find someone in your state who is knowledgeable in those all the different aspects, whether they're young or older as well.
So, since we're both certified divorce specialists and we're also both a member of the National Association of Divorce Professionals, I believe that we give an added benefit to our customers because we do have various people that we can reach out to outsource these unique divorcing situations. Tell me about your knowledge or maybe what you've learned. Is it possible for parents to co-parent special needs children, or how does that work? Because I know a lot of divorces get really angry and people are like, focus on the children. But in my instance, as well as in your instance, is adult children. My adult children didn't need care provided for them, but yours did. So how does that work? Were you able to kind of put the emotion to the side and just hone in on what was in your children's best interest?
Sure, that's a great point. Is so going into my divorce, I knew that I had to put my children first. Granted, I was going through a lot of feelings. It was difficult and trying to navigate everything that I had to do. Besides being a full-time caregiver, I had to manage the whole divorce process and that to make sure that I got a good result for my family. And so, yeah, there is a need to co-parent. And so I help people as a coach to go from the emotion to the business side of divorce, right? We want to look at this uh, as a business, financial, and legal transaction, as opposed to getting emotional justice. That's not going to happen in divorce. That's not what it's there for. It's not the way it's set up. So we want to, change your thinking from, why me or why am I in this position to how can I get through this process to the best of my ability and support my kids in the process and look at their long-term needs so that those are addressed. We talked a little bit about under and over 18. The mistake I see a lot of people making is putting those decisions off till later. Some lawyers may advise, or the other, ex or soon to be ex may say, well, let's just deal with that after 18 about disability and ongoing support. I find that kind of is not in your best interest, because sometimes that may be hard to modify, or judges may say, well, it wasn't stated before, why is it an issue now? So I would recommend, as much as you can, be sure to include a clause and disability findings in your initial agreements, and it will make life a lot easier for you in the future. But yeah, definitely, in terms of co-parenting, everyone's gonna have a different style, right? I mean, your ex may be willing to look at what's best for the kids and develop a parenting plan together. But sometimes it may not be co-parenting, it may be parallel parenting. That's a term meaning, you're going to do what you need to do in your house, and they're going to do what they're going to do at their house. And that's something that's kind of hard to accept, especially when you both
Right,
involved, or one has been the primary caregiver and one doesn't have maybe that experience.
right. And releasing control, knowing that the children ultimately do adapt to different parenting styles. Yes.
Right, right.
Yes.
But there are ways to help the child transition from home to home, and so we want to prepare that child, because transitions
Yes.
are hard for a lot of kids, especially those on the autism spectrum, to have
Yes.
changes in their routine and life. And so we want to prepare them as much as we can. Maybe start off slowly and then increase the time. So
Right.
I've created different social stories and different ways to help families through that. And there's different ways to do like visual calendars and so on. And hopefully, even the other parent may choose to parent in their own way, having some similar tools and effective communication back and forth to share about what works for that child, how to maybe help that child and take care of their medical and behavioral needs that maybe the other parent wasn't as involved in. We want to get that parent up to speed, even though we may not They may not want to hear it from us. We want to do it in a way that they find non-threatening, for one, but also they can then use as a reference and then be able to do what they can to support that child so that both parents are comfortable with that child being in each home.
There's so many things to think about when you have a special needs child, that not only is there the emotional support, the caregiving support, but there's also the financial aspect of it as well, because it's a lot for one person to take care of another person. I know I was a caregiver for an aging father, which a lot of people go through, but I know for divorcing couples, that would be really challenging. I know I went and sought out a divorce coach for an hour because that was all I could afford. And I remember her saying that if I could remove the emotions and look at it as a financial transaction to be mutually beneficial to both of us, that that would help me get through that. Have you found that to be true as well?
Exactly. Yeah, we spend so much time and energy and spending valuable billable hours and time and funds with our attorney kind of going through emotional stuff, and really that's not what they're there to do. They're help to help you legally advocate for your situation. And so yeah, it's best to um, find either a divorce coach in conjunction with maybe a therapist to kind of work through some of the emotional aspects. But yeah, divorce coaches are great to keep you on track, set an action plan, goals for you to help achieve in your divorce.
I know I have worked with several people, and they were very emotionally charged and paying the attorneys a lot of money to read the emails and really, I mean, what is there to say? But I consider divorce to be a financial transaction. I also recommend that people reach out to a certified divorce specialist or a divorce coach in order to pre-plan your finances. And by that, I believe that the most difficult thing about going to the divorce is filling out that financial affidavit. Would you agree?
That was challenging for sure.
And I know in my experience working with both men and women that a lot of women aren't aware of all the surrounding financial aspects. I would imagine that's typical in my generation, but I would imagine that that might be similar in a situation like yours where you're the caregiver and you're thinking that the spouse is managing the finances. Is that a true or a false assumption?
It can be. A lot of times that is the case. In my case, I was both a caregiver and kind of doing the budgeting and paying the bill. So I had that knowledge, but still it's hard to get all the information, collect it, even though I'm a business, major from way back when. If you're not used to providing those kind of reports and pulling that information that may or may not be easily accessible, that can be challenging. So yeah, to your point, definitely working with a divorce coach and financial person, even before you start looking for attorneys, I think can be very valuable and save you a lot of money down the road, and have a better plan of what you need to discuss with that attorney and what you want to get out of that divorce. So yeah, definitely everything that you can do up front, and say, even if you can work with your soon to be ex to come up with some plans and agreements to kind of make the process better for everybody, as opposed to, like you said,
Right.
a situation.
Yeah, I recommend that people reach out to somebody like myself that can help with the financial accountability before, during, and after, because a lot of people are so focused on get as much as I can, get as much as I can, get as much as I can, and then they get as much as they can and they're happy. And then post divorce, you need to be able to protect your family, your children, your assets in case, let's say, you have a child that is a special needs child and they're in a freak automobile accident. You want to be able to protect all of those assets around that. And so I think it's important that there's a process going through in figuring out what there is to divide, because you cannot squeeze juice out of a turnip, right? If there's only $50 to split, you cannot sue for 10,000. There's only $50. And so I think that's very important as well, and particularly with special needs children, especially if they're able to be autonomous outside of the home and protecting the assets that you garnished on behalf of them so that you can protect their future as well.
Right, right. So there's first party trust. Sometimes if the child is over 18, you want to put that have that child support paid into a first party trust. There's third party trust where that would be the beneficiary of, say, life insurance or other, gifts or inheritance, because you once again want to protect that child to be able to be eligible for other things. So
Yes,
there's different ways to you're trying to, maybe like I said, maybe dry is not much there, but what are some other sources of income, in the short term or long term, or say, long term planning, how can we address the needs of that child? So it's a multifaceted effort, and I think that is one of the biggest stressors in a special needs divorce is the financial
right,
aspect. How are we going to support this child who's it costs
right.
more to support a
Well,
special needs
and I
than
think a lot of people get so mired in the middle of the divorce that they don't consider that long range planning. And that's what I love about being an NADP is that we are able to connect people with wonderful people that will walk people through the entire process. But in my opinion, not only is knowing what you financially have to start with, but what you could end up with, that the whole end of the spectrum really needs to be managed because there are estate attorneys, there are trust attorneys, there are bankruptcy attorneys, there are divorce attorneys, there are real estate attorneys. So there's a lot of moving parts in these things, which can be overwhelming. And I believe, Marianne, that you and I can help with that. So are we ready to tell our audience what our special deal is this month?
sure, sure, happy to.
In the month of love, even though sometimes divorces aren't very loving, we are offering a free 30-minute consultation with either just Marianne or just myself, or actually both of us. If you would like to meet with both of us, this offer will end at the end of February. So this is a 1-month offer that we're offering to everybody. I think it would do anybody who's considering a divorce or maybe is in the midst of one and can't seem to push it forward. I would highly recommend that you reach out to one of us or both of us. And I think we could help you really get that communication going so that you can keep moving through this very, very challenging time in your life. We have both been through divorces and we understand the emotions, but really and truly is focusing on the financial aspect of it. And particularly in Marianne's situation, focusing with the financial aspect of it, both for herself as well as her special needs children. So we would love for you to reach out to us. This is our contact information. And Marianne, thank you so very much. I just really enjoyed meeting with you. And I know that we're going to do more collaborations and just looking forward to getting to know you better. You're a beautiful person. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Really enjoyed this. And I love that you have that special needs expertise and perspective on things to help families through this hard time and afterwards as
Thank,
well.
thank you. Stay blessed, everyone. Bye-bye.